Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to show you guys how to cut and buff a freshly painted fender or hood or anything that you've painted in your shop. So this is our freshly painted fender. It does have a little bit of nibs and trash in the paint. There's a little bit right here. I'm not taking the orange peel out. I'm just taking the debris out of the paint. So I've already done the hood. So I want to mask this off with tape to keep from burning it, and the same with the door. So I want to mask that off so just I don't accidentally sand it. And we are using a pneumatic sander with a 3M hook it pad and then a float pad. So this allows to go over the curves and surfaces without digging in. So what I want to start with is 1,000 grit. So I like the 3M gold finishing film disc. So we start with 1,000, just roughly go over it because 1,000 grit is really hard to buff out. So we do 1,000 first. And then we'll go over it with 1,500 to take the 1,000 grit scratches and do the final sanding with it. And then once that's done, we'll make sure it's really clean and I'll show you guys how to polish. All right, so as you guys can see here, this kind of looks dull. This is after sanding with 1,000 and 1,500 grit. I'll give you a demonstration. I just got a little bit left. But the key is to try to stay off the hard edges. So you don't want to sand too hard on these because you'll have to buff all these edges right here, right through here, and you have a high probability of burning through the paint when you're trying to polish it. So what I like to do is I'll go all the way up almost to it, and if I gotta come back with it, I'll do it very carefully. But I try to keep the bulk of my sanding away from the edges. Just barely buzzed over it with 1,000 just to kind of take the nubs off, the nibs. And then I went back over it a little harder with 1,500. So I'll give you a quick demonstration. So this is my 3M with a float pad for these curves. As you guys see, the soft pad lets it contour without digging in with the hard edge. So you kind of get a nice smooth transition when you're trying to sand, and you don't have the lines for when you're trying to do it with the hard pad. All right, so we're ready to start polishing. So what I like to use is the Meguiar's brand Mirror Glaze for my compound. I use a 3M cutting pad, and when I put this on, I like to just do a little bit and rub it in. I like to take a rag afterwards and just double check it. So what I do, the reason I rub it in is so when you hit it with the buffer, it doesn't sling it and throw it everywhere. So I just pick a small spot, rub it in, and I take this. I never put it flat. I kind of slightly tip it and I work it back and forth because you don't want to get the panel too hot because that's when you'll burn your paint. So I'm working it back and forth. I'm very careful not to be on this edge or this edge, because these are the ones that you're going to be high risk to burn through as you're trying to polish this fender. So I'm constantly working it back and forth. Once I feel it getting hot, then I stop. All right, so I got most of the fender done, but I'll show you guys how to do this edge right here. So I knew I had some trash and debris in this, so I made sure that I barely hit it with 1000 grit and really hit it more with the 1500, so it's faster to buff. The areas in concern that I want to be aware of is this edge and this edge as I'm buffing. So you'll notice that I'll vary my speed a little bit. So based on how the pad is acting, if it's like jumping around, I'll slow down or I'll put more compound on it. But if it's nice and polishing, then I continue on. But you just have to look and see how it's polishing and then feel it and see what it's doing while you're buffing yours. Put a little ribbon on there. Rub it in so I'm not slinging it all over the car. This stuff is hard to get off once you let it dry and you try to wash it. It doesn't like to come off. So what I'm gonna do is work at an angle, and I'm just gonna work back and forth. I don't wanna be on this edge too long, and I don't wanna be on this edge too long. All right, guys, this is how you polish your freshly cut fender and freshly painted fender. So in case it comes up any questions, I am using a variable speed buffer. I keep it on 3, and that's just my comfort level. You can go faster. I wouldn't recommend going too slow, but the biggest thing is not to get the panel too hot and just work small areas. So as you guys can see, nice polished fender. Cut all the debris out of it. Got a little bit of the orange peel. There you go. Thanks for tuning in.